Hello, good people, and welcome to Let's Live, Love, and Learn with Khalil Hill. I go by the name of Khalil Jiddu Hill, and I am excited once again to share a part of myself with you today. It is truly one of the highlights of my life. And so, before we get started, as always, going to give you this disclaimer. What follows are my thoughts and my beliefs that I've accumulated over the last 20 to 25 years of my spiritual journey. I will always encourage everyone to use their own discernment when listening to this content. There will be things that you agree with, and there will probably be many more that you disagree with. And that's 100% okay. The only thing that I ask is that you contemplate the concepts that resonate with you and just leave the rest behind. These life lessons that I'm sharing with you are not intended for you to adopt them, but they are simply being shared in order to encourage you and to inspire you to seek and find your own life lessons to enrich your lives. Ultimately, I'm hoping that this creative expression of mine makes people feel a little less alone and a little bit more loved as they continue their journey towards the heart of the Creator. So quick recap of the last video. We talked about Khalil Gibran and continued the discussion about his masterpiece, The Prophet. We went over the second of the two life lessons, which are essentially the cornerstones and the foundation of my belief system. That second life lesson was to trust life because every experience is for our soul's development. uh, I will always be appreciative of Gibran's impact on my life. His genius and artistry has left an indelible impression on me, and it will inspire me, I truly believe, for the rest of my days. And so, Khalil taught me about the infinite nature of love and all of its complexities and its beautiful simplicity as well. As I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Khalil Gibran in many ways represents my heart. So now we're going to kind of transition to someone who influenced how I pursue truth, how I process information, and also how I may analyze data. Uh, Jiddu Krishnamurti and the collection of writings and teachings in total freedom gave me the tools to really liberate my mind. Um, if Khalil represents my heart, then Krishnamurti definitely represents my mind. And so, one unique aspect about my relationship with Jiddu Krishnamurti is that, believe it or not, I actually disagree with him on quite a few things, to be honest with you. But that's also the reason why I admire him so much. He always encouraged critical thinking and debate. Truth wasn't something just set in stone. A lot of times when he was speaking in front of a group or crowd, he encouraged them to take this journey to find the answers together. And so he didn't believe we all should think or sound the same. In fact, he believed that, our journeys towards God or truth should be an individualized and unique path and journey. And so that belief inspired today's lesson, which is no one faith or religion can house every truth of God. And so I'm going to take you back a little of Jiddu Krishnamurti history here. And so on August 3rd, 1929, Krishnamurti delivered what's come to be known as the Disillusion speech in front of about 3,000 members of the Order of the Star in the East, founded by the Theosophical Society around, I think, 1911. The speech effectively dissolved the order, uh, which believed that Krishnamurti was the prophesied world teacher who would transfer the knowledge of the true constitution and workings of existence to humanity to them. On that Saturday, Krishnamurti repudiated the order's mission along with the title and expectations that they had of him. That speech, gosh, I read it and I read the context around that speech, and it had me in awe, to be quite honest with you, because of the courage and conviction that it took to to walk up there in front of 3,000 people who hail you as this prophesied world teacher, and essentially to say to them, you know what? Hello, I am not who you think I am, and I'm about to deliver a message that it goes totally against what you think I'm up here to do. In fact, I'm essentially going to bring all of this down to the ground. Um, that takes a lot of chutzpah. And so in that speech, Krishnamurti laid out his belief why each of us should seek our own unique truth and not to surrender our power of discernment to any authority. Now, I'm going to read a portion of the disillusioned speech. I think it's absolutely fascinating, and I definitely wanted to share it in this video with all of you. So uh, let me jump into it. Truth is a pathless land, and you cannot approach it by any path whatsoever, by any religion, by any sect. That is my point of view, and I adhere to that absolutely and unconditionally. Truth being limitless, unconditioned, unapproachable by any path whatsoever cannot be organized, nor should any organization be formed to lead or to coerce people along any particular path. If you first understand that, then you will see how impossible it is to organize a belief. A belief is purely an individual matter, and you cannot and must not organize it. If you do, it becomes dead, crystallized, it becomes a creed, a sect, a religion to be imposed on others. Then Krishnamurti kind of goes on and says, I maintain that no organization can lead man to spirituality. If an organization be created for this purpose, it becomes a crutch, a weakness, a bondage, and must cripple the individual and prevent him from growing, from establishing his uniqueness, which lies in the discovery of himself, of that absolute, unconditioned truth. And so, you know, gosh, I know when I read those that quote from Krishnamurti in his speech, that many will consider his words sacrilegious. And that is to be expected, right? Others will listen to it and they may disagree with it purely on the merits, the logical merits of what he had to say. And to be honest with you, I actually disagreed with numerous things that he articulated that day, specifically in that speech or the portion of the speech that I just read to you. Yet I have to admit that most of that speech, most of that messaging that day really ignited the belief that, you know what, I could walk a different path towards truth, towards my understanding of the creator from what I was being taught, for years prior, since I was young growing up within the church, I realized that, you know what, there is a different path that I could walk. And that speech helped really inspire me and gave me the confidence to do that. So his words helped me to challenge and question everything that I had ever known up to that point. There was a point in my life where I actually sat back and I evaluated every single belief uh, and realized much of it was not true. Everything that I accepted as true, even everything that, I accepted as a lie, I had to reevaluate everything in order for me to find out what really was true, without the filters, without the preconceived notions, without the obvious influence I had that was indoctrinated within me, since I was a young kid. And so um, his assertion that truth is a pathless land, it really legitimized a feeling within me. And I knew I already had an inkling, as I've mentioned before, but that statement really kind of emboldened me to start seeking and understanding more about God outside of the confines that I had searched for those answers in the past. And so you could say that in many ways, Gibran's words lured and inspired me to extrapolate beauty and purpose in all things. But it was Krishnamurti's intellect and his charismatic deconstruction of organized religion's authority that helped remove the largest barriers to my personal pursuit of truth. Now, I would like to kind of go into where I differ with Krishnamurti. And it kind of starts with where he says that I believe truth is, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? He says that truth is limitless, and I agree with that 100%. But I can and do think that truth can form walls and shelters of the mind that protect us with limits when we need them. Um, to give an example, it's very tough, growing up, especially early in your spirituality, to wrap your head around the concept of a God that's infinite or limitless or, without beginning or end. Like that is a concept that's hard to stomach to digest initially. And I think that what truth does, what God does is that, for me, personally speaking, like my introduction into the Judeo Christian faith, the religion, into Christianity, into the Baptist church, I needed those walls. I needed to know, right, this was wrong. This is God, this isn't of God. Like I needed those clearly defined parameters in order for me to start being introduced to the divine, introduced to the concept of a God. That helped me kind of, it was like it incubated me in order for me to get to the point where I felt like I could grow and learn more and maybe stretch myself outside of those walls. But I needed those boundaries initially. And so I do think that it's kind of like, yes, truth is limitless, but I think that it has compartments, it has limitless compartments where we can go in and have these structures that have walls and provide security and allow us to grow and maybe expand outside of those walls at some point. I hope that makes sense. And so, another thing that I kind of disagree a little bit with Krishnamurti on is that, I believe that belief can be organized, but it must be flexible and it has to be willing to give way when its structure inhibits our development, our evolution, and our expansion. And so I think that, our organized religions that we have today, or organized faiths, I think that they are 100% um, needed. I think that they're a positive influence on society. I feel like my experience, once again, with the Baptist Church and Christianity, it helped me so much. A lot of my moral foundation and my center came from that, and so I think that it's not just about beliefs being organized. It's about also being able to gosh, have that synergy with others, that fellowship with others and coming together in a congregation and worshiping together. It's one of those things where belief is personal. It is an individual matter. But I think through shared belief systems, we can find connection and that synergy of fellowship. I think it strengthens our faith. In many ways, I think it provides like social proof, especially when you're early on. Like the whole concept of, oh, there's this guy in the sky who punishes you when you do bad and rewards you when you do good. Like that's on the face of it, if you didn't grow up in that belief, that's kind of trippy, right? And so to have a, a group of people, a congregation where you can fellowship with, that you can worship with, and have this shared belief, it definitely serves as this social proof to let you know, like, hey, it's okay to believe in something that you can't feel, see, smell, or anything that you're accustomed to in this physical reality. And so, um, and then the last thing, I believe that, personally, I think that truth, it isn't a pathless land. In fact, I think it's divined by countless paths that stretch from every possible point of origin. I don't think that you can walk any single path that was previously trekked, but I do think that you're guided, that you're encouraged, and that you're rewarded for treading your own path. That belief gave me the courage to continue along my path of self discovery. Without it, I don't know if I would have been able to discard so much of my identity. And that's the thing, it can be very scary uh, to challenge the beliefs you've grown up with. And that was something that, I wrestled with for a very long time. And honestly, if it wasn't for me going off to school, to college, and getting away from that circle of influence, I can 100% guarantee you I would not be the person I am today. In order to explore those thoughts and those feelings that I had, I needed to be away from that influence constantly tugging and pulling on me. And so like I said, it can be scary to challenge those beliefs you've grown up with, especially when most of them not only contain your hopes and fears, but the things that you need, like security and belonging. All of that's wrapped up, in people's faith and the communities that they live in. And so I get it, right? It is tough to go against the grain. It is tough to fight against something that you've grown up all your life knowing. And so, but, it was one of the things that, I knew I had to do it. And, I knew that there was more out there for me to learn. Um, Gosh, it would have been far more difficult for me to live a life or accept any half truths, or for me to compromise my spirit, and my vigor for life by just going along with something that, I didn't really agree with. So yeah, there's times and there's moments in life where you are sparked, to seek something different, that that you can no longer go along with um, the norm, the motions. And I kind of mentioned it before in a previous video about, my friends and how I knew that, those who were homosexual, that it wasn't necessarily a choice of theirs. Um, but it was something that the church was telling me that that was wrong, that it was an abomination, and that they were going to hell because of it. And I wasn't ready to um, accept that. And that was one of the things that really told me that I had to go a different way and to kind of break away a little bit. And I'll get into that a little bit in the next video as we expound upon it. But so yeah, no one faith or religion can house every truth of God. And so here's a question that I'm leaving with you today. Do you believe that truth is a pathless land? And that knowing the divine requires a personalized, unique journey of seeking and exploration? Or do you believe that the world's major religions got it figured out? And the only thing that you need to do is simply commit to one of them in order to get closer to God? As always, I'm very excited to read your answers in the comments below, and I know the community would love to read them as well. And so, today's quote and my message, to my son: if we're not free to leave the shelters of our mind, they will become a tomb where our vigor and intelligence slowly rot. Thanks for spending another 15 to 20-ish minutes with me. I truly do enjoy these moments of sharing myself with others. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Know that you are never alone and that you are always loved. Peace out.